Hear me at the back? All good? So I want to talk to you today about building a continuous delivery pipeline in around 5 minutes, but don't hold me to that exactly. We'll see how it goes. My name's David. I work at Made Tech. Have a passion for automating things, bits and bobs. Also the co-author of a new book we've just published, which is here. But before we get into this stuff, I just want to kick off like a demo command thing because it's going to take 5 minutes to run as I promised. But let's get this running in the background. So also I'll just show you that I've got a blank AWS playground here that has nothing in it, so no smoke and mirrors. This is hopefully all going to be live. Oh, okay, take my word for it. There we go. Okay, so make right. I'm just gonna leave that running in the background then. So continuous delivery. What is this to us? What does it mean to us? It's kind of made up of two things: continuous integration as well as automated deploys. Continuous integration to us is having the team all merge back into a single repository on a single branch, just to make sure that we've got no issues getting our features back in. And to do that well, you're encouraged to commit early and often into your project. Don't do a massive commit of all your work at the end of the day because that's just nasty, and try merging that into at the end of the day when you want to get to the pub is not great. So we encourage pushing into the repository at least hourly, maybe more than that, definitely not daily if possible. This gives you a faster feedback loop. You'll find out very quick if you break the build. You'll hear someone shout out that you've killed something, and you can, because you're committing you've got small commits, things are much easier to track down what's causing an issue and fix them quicker. And we focus on delivering small releasable features rather than big chunks of work that take weeks or months to complete. If we'd work on small releases and just iterate on those, building functionality as we go along. So once you're doing continuous integration, we want to make our deploys as boring as possible, and that's just automating them so that you don't really have to think what's going on. This means that you don't have to worry about manual steps to deploy something. You have one command that gets that up to a web server, and kind of getting rid of red tape and things that get in the way of a deploy. Smaller deploys. Again, this is kind of related to the smaller commits. You don't want to deploy a load of stuff from your staging environment to production at the end of the week. Again, because that's where you take on a much bigger risk that things are going to break. So try and deploy to production as frequently as you can. Daily would be great. Deployments are easier because people don't need to really know what's happening behind the scenes. So that means that when you're onboarding new people, they can just deploy it without needing to worry. It's great to get teams up to speed quicker like this. And because you're deploying frequently, it becomes a less scary thing, which, again, is great. This lets you deploy up to production daily rather than having to be scared and doing it once a week. So once your deploys are very boring, then you need to build a pipeline to get your code from your local development machine up to a production environment. This is a standard pipeline that we use. You may have more or less of those environments. I'll go through each of them and what we use them for. So the build step in the pipeline is what runs our automated tests. It checks the code format, code style guidelines are all followed, and we're being tidy and not lazy. It also checks our code complexity to make sure everything's nice and clean. If this fails at all, then the rest of the pipeline won't be able to. It won't go it won't be able to go up the pipeline further. You have to wait and you have to fix your tests, sort your white space out before you can go any further. So that's a build step in the pipeline. The next step's continuous. This is used by our internal team. We don't really show it to like non-techie people or clients. This just once all of our code's integrated onto the master branch, this gives our teams like a chance to check the features and just make sure that everyone's integrating well, I guess. Once we're happy with that, we then move up to the staging step of the pipeline. This is for clients to check out the features that we've been working on for them. It gives them a chance to check that it's what they expected before we deploy that out to production. If they have any issues, then obviously we can go back and fix them and push it back up the pipeline again. But until they give us the green light, we don't move to production. And so this is then deploying your code up to, to serve live traffic. So that's our pipeline. This has worked for us for the past few years. So we're like really keen to like spread that for all the to spread the faith in our continuous delivery pipeline. And yep. We have like smoke tests and stuff that will like check everything's working, and we have like well, yeah, continuously we have like monitoring and stuff. Yeah. I was going to say we sometimes have like blue-green deployments, which lets us like test on a production environment, and only once we're happy, we'll then flip it to the opposite. So yeah, every client that we work with, we implement one of these pipelines. It's worked for us great, and this is what we're familiar with. So sometimes, due to restrictions their side, we'll have to set this all up within their own infrastructure, or if there's no issues, we'll host it for them. And usually the first day that we start work on a project, we spend probably a couple of hours or a day setting this pipeline up in a Jenkins install. This is usually, it's been manual, and depending on who sets it up, things are quite different. We are really keen to like standardize this so that everything's similar and quicker to set up. It's quite impressive when you can tell a client that we've deployed to production on the first day. So we wanted basically one command that would let us do this. This is it, and you saw me running this just before I started. Behind the scenes, there's obviously more to it. We've got a few different tools doing different things. I'm going to run through each of those. So Terraform is the tool that sets up our AWS infrastructure. It's a great way to like codify exactly what you'd normally do in the AWS console. It's great documentation, and it makes it reusable and repeatable with one command. This is a manifest file, and you can run Terraform apply, and it will just go and do all its stuff. It's great. You'll see here that we've got some tags there. These are just like standard AWS tags, and we utilize these when we provisioning the software on the servers, which leads me to Ansible. So we've got some servers now set up on AWS, but they've got nothing on them. Ansible is similar to Chef, and yep. That's all right. Yeah. I don't know, to be honest. Yeah. I don't know. The provider on Terraform supports most AWS like resources. I don't know whether that is one of them, but right. Right. don't know, I'm afraid. Sorry. So Ansible's the stuff that's going to install software on those servers, but first of all, it needs to know where to install those things. So there's a dynamic inventory script that Ansible provide. This is a Python script, and that basically uses your AWS credentials. It logs into the API and pulls down all of your instances that you have, and along with that, it groups them by the AWS tags. So you saw that we had tagged that instance with Jenkins master. So Ansible then has all of these instances available to it, and it has them tagged. In our Ansible roles, we then target those tags. As you can see, we've got the Jenkins master tag, and we just tell it to install Jenkins and all of its dependencies on those servers. So you no longer need to like when I first started using Ansible, it was a manual inventory file, which was just a plain text file. You had to manually add your IP addresses to it and stuff. And now this is great; you don't have to worry about that. So it now knows what to install where. We've added a custom Ansible role, which does our fancy continuous delivery pipeline, which you can see represented here in like an Ansible variables file. So you've got the 4 different steps there, and it tells Jenkins what branch to pull from, where to push it from, on a successful build or deploy, and the next job in the pipeline to trigger. So Ansible behind the scenes is using these variables to build. It uses a template to generate an nasty XML file, which Jenkins uses behind the scenes to represent their jobs. Once Ansible's finished, you've got a brand new Jenkins install. We use the build pipeline plugin, which again strings together all of those different Jenkins jobs and knows which one to build next, and it gives you this like visual representation of your pipeline. So the thing that's gluing it all together is a make file. Here we've got Terraform creating the stuff, and then we've got a big chunky Ansible command there. You'll see we've got some variables down here. At the top of the make file, we specify the Git repo that this project's to be built from. Make then injects that into Ansible, which then uses it in the templates for Jenkins, so that once this command's finished, you've got the Jenkins set up with that project repository, and it's ready to go. So for the demo, we've created an example app, very basic. We've decided to just use Pivotal, which is like based on Cloud Foundry, just because it's really simple to deploy an app out there. That could quite easily be Heroku or something else. It's just a basic Ruby on Rails app that my colleague Chris set up. The Jenkins is currently only set up with Ruby dependencies just to build this one project, but I'll talk later about things that we'd like to do to improve this, to build any project. So, if I go back to the demo, you'll see that the make file's finished. The last thing that was running was Ansible. This over. So there was our empty AWS. We've now got an instance running. There's the Elastic IP that we generated, which is the same one down that Ansible was using to install everything. So now if I hit that up, we'll just put some basic HTTP in front of it. So there is the brand new Jenkins set up with this example project. Up here we've got the pipeline view, and while I've been talking, it's been able to get through each step of this pipeline. So let's hit up. If I just go to the console output of this build, at the bottom we get the URL of where Pivotal's deployed the app to, and there it is. Again, I'm not responsible for this. My colleague set it up. So, yeah, so this demo app just outputs the environment that it's currently running in. So if I can swap out to staging and production. Cool. Right, so I'm going to go back to continuous and just show you a change going up to this. Where are we? No, just throw something in there. Push that back up to GitHub. For speed's sake, I'll just trigger a new build. You can set this up to have it poll automatically, or if I had time to set up DNS records, we could trigger that directly from GitHub to automatically trigger the build. So we don't have any tests for this app because it's so basic, but we're just spitting out some Rails stats there just to show that there's a custom build step. If I go back, so build's completed. So all my tests are running fine. It's now deploying up to the continuous environment. For the demo, I've set up the steps so that between continuous, which again is being used by our internal team, and staging, which is shown to clients, this is an automatic deploy step, but normally we'd have a manual step here, so that once continuous is deployed successfully, we may not want to share that with clients straight away. We may want to check and tidy things up that we may have done wrong. So after this is deployed, you'd normally have an extra button here to manually trigger the stage and deploy step. And the same with between staging and production. The client may be happy with it, but they may not be ready for it to go live straight away. So again, they'd be in control of that deploy. Yep. So with Pivotal, it's basically pulling down the code, building, installing all of our gems here, and then it basically just uploads all of the files to Pivotal, which then in turn sets up the app and boots it up for us. We don't have that currently. We don't use that, but that is something that we've been looking into doing for test suites that take quite a lot of time. We'd like to have that separate. It's something we definitely would like to look into in the future. Okay, so this is now deployed out, and if I just quickly refresh, there we can see that I'm not lying. It's actually doing something. So let's get the slides back. So this is just something that I've put together in the last couple of days, but obviously we'd like to take it further because this is standardizing our process. Rather than configuring this command in the make file, actually having to edit the variables in there, we'd like to be able to say make Jenkins and pass in a Git repository as arguments, and because then you could clone this down and reuse it for multiple things. As I mentioned, we'd like to have blue-green deployments. The Cloud Foundry gem that we're using to deploy to Pivotal currently supports it. It's just I was lazy and didn't really have time to add that. But it would just be an additional step after the production deploy to do a production flip, which would switch between the different blue and green production environments and just determine which one serves the traffic. Canary deploys as well. You may not want to deploy your app out to all users. You may want to deliver it to 10%, for example. So yeah, again, we'd like to be able to have that control as well. we're currently just supporting Pivotal, but we'd like to be able to use Capistrano or any other kind of deployment tools. This would then let you deploy to anything over SSH, basically. And as I mentioned, Jenkins has Ruby installed directly onto it just for this demo because, again, of time. But it would be great to isolate those project dependencies into a Docker file and actually have Jenkins do all of the project dependency stuff within a Docker container. Then you'd be able to run any sort of project, be it PHP, Python, or whatever. And this currently only supports a single pipeline in Jenkins, but being able to add additional Git repositories to this, because you're usually managing more than one, would be great. So this is not currently open source, but I hope by the end of the week I've removed all of my credentials that are hidden in there, and it's not a big security risk, and then we can publish it out there, and would be happy for like any contributions or ideas for it, because being able to do that in one command in a couple of minutes is great, and it's going to save us a bunch of time. As I mentioned, we've just published a book on continuous delivery. If you speak to Seb, he's over there. He is. We've got 30 copies, I think, to give away. The authors are all here as well, and they'd quite like to sign your books as well and make them feel special. But if you don't get a free copy, then you can go here and fill out a little form, and we sign you up to our newsletter, and as a thanks, you get a free book, and we'll ship it out to you. Or the e-book's available on Amazon. And that's it. Is there any questions? Any questions? Yep. Yeah. We currently only use this for things that can be built in one pipeline. We don't have like different ones that kind of form one mega thing at the end currently. Yep.
This is like probably quite a specific thing, but you're using the pipeline plugin or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Do your Ansible scripts deploy the plugins?
Yeah, they.
Because you just created that, right?
Yeah, yeah. So let me.
Struggled with the API at one point to do something similar.
I kind of maybe cheated, and there's an Ansible role. Where are we? There's a great Ansible role online where you can just specify a variable with all of the plugins you want installed, and it will just go and do all that magic for you. Behind the scenes, I think it is doing like curl commands and like interfacing with the API and stuff. But highly recommend that Ansible role. Saves a lot of headaches. Yep.
So also within Ansible, you had a CD pipeline build.
Yeah. So with the Ansible role, sorry, was that?
So in your example where you have 4 stages,
Yeah.
it was using a module called CD pipeline something or another.
CD pipeline. We have a custom Ansible role, which then, where's my mouse? Yes, we've added a custom role which handles the setting up of the XML files and stuff, and that's what. Oh, I know what you mean now. The variables, this stuff. Yeah, so this is just a variable file, and our custom role then uses those variables which are here, and it just basically loops over them, uses the template stuff in Ansible, and just creates an XML file based on all of those. And that's what Jenkins is using behind the scenes to store the jobs and stuff. Yep. That may be something that kind of runs parallel, so it's not like... do you mean like checking that performance hasn't decreased and stuff? Yes, that would probably be something that runs outside of the pipeline, I imagine, because it might take a while to run or something. Any others? Yep. Sorry? Sorry, can you repeat that? Oh, uniquely tag them. Yeah, so in this demo I've taken, because I've been using this demo repo, you can't kind of create the same tag multiple times, so I've taken that out. We use the Git publisher thing in Jenkins to, where are we? Deploy. So down here we push out, oh yeah, that's the tag stuff, it's just commented out at the moment, but we would we would tag each build or each deploy with the build number from Jenkins, so that you've got that history in Git basically. Cool.
That's probably enough questions. I'm sure David will be very happy to answer some more if you grab him in a minute when he's managed to get
Yeah,
to the bar
sure.
and get a beer first.